Good morning, everyone. Hello, yonder, back there. Good morning.
There's seats over here.
This table feels longer than usual. Is something going on? Anyway, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's meeting. Thank you to the youth board members and the youth committee members that have dropped off gifts for the Smile of Love. We really appreciate that. And if you're like me, you have a beautiful bag of gifts that's still at your doorstep, because I ran out pretty quickly, but I will be sure to bring my bag in. So there's time, so please, if you haven't been able to, please do so. So I guess we will open with Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. I have a bit of a cold, so if I go in and out, it's because I'm struggling with this cold. The report is in the packet, but a couple of things I do want to touch on. Something I said to Ray that I went to on Monday, and we're getting the video. I've convinced the Partnership for After School Education to launch the Richard Murphy Leadership Award, and it was held on Monday at Gatineau Arts. Really nice, posh conference room. About 100 people who knew Richard were there, and I had the opportunity to present the first award to Mayor David Dinkins, which I think was only appropriate, coming full circle since he hired Richard. And so much of the work we do today, he laid the foundation for. So Pace had a videographer there, so the whole thing was recorded. We'll get the video, we'll put it on our YouTube page, we'll send out the link. But it was really touching. Some wonderful stories that Jeffrey Canada talked about, Sister Paulette, Jim Marley, people who were there with him over 30 years ago. And I said that, in my remarks, is that it's hard to imagine how different the world would be today if Richard didn't do what he did back then, which was quite impossible. Raising new money for youth programs at a time when the city was facing billions of dollars in deficit. It was nice. I wanted to make sure there was a living tribute to Richard, because so that future generations will understand his contributions to young people in the city. The other thing I want to talk about is sort of like what I see in a second term. I think, and I said this to our staff, I think exponential growth is behind us for a lot of reasons. One is I think the economy is slowing. Two, there are external threats, primarily Washington. The tax bill scares the hell out of everyone here. So for very practical reasons, I think our budget probably will not grow substantially we won't double again. Okay, I think we go from under 400 million to 840 million. It's probably as good as we're going to get. There might be some specific increases in specific programs, which in some ways is a good thing, because sometimes my fear is always growing too fast and quality suffers. So I think the focus of the second term will be how to have better impact. And it aligns with what I wanted to do, which was better program integration. Our data system, DYC Connect, will be ready to launch next summer, and it'll be fully launched next school year. Our recent app, Discover DYC, has won a couple of government awards as best app for public use. I'm starting conversations with other city agencies about how we can better connect their constituents to our services. So I had a meeting with the chair of the Housing Authority last week, and I said one of the things I want to do is get residents connected to services that we fund that are not in public housing, but might be outside of public housing, because there's a tendency for people who live in public housing to self-segregate. And I mentioned our Discover DYCD app, because we only have 94 cornerstones, community centers, but there are many, many more public housing developments than 94. So, and same thing, I had a conversation with Jocelyn Carter, who's head of homeless services, about the same thing. For many people who live in family shelters, who live there on an average of 400 days, they need to be better connected to services where they live, because for all intents and purposes, that's their home. So I see less growth, more impact, more quality, more alignment. And that's sort of, I don't see major changes. And the last big program to be designed is the Summer Youth Employment Program. We're waiting for some final decisions by the Office of Management and Budget before we can release that RFP. So we're going to be rolling out this summer a phase-in of school-based programs where we're using our existing summer youth employment programs to partner with high schools so that we can test the model even further. There'll be an application coming out. Is Stephanie here? Or, so when is the application coming out?
I believe
Okay.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, enough. So because we don't have certainty on the request for proposal, we're going to do what's called a limited application for the school-based programs, limiting it to just existing summer youth employment programs. So it's like an added service to what they're already doing. And the idea is to work with high schools that have signed up, interested in being a partner, and that certain number of jobs we set aside for young people who go to that high school. And the focus is mostly career technical education schools, because there is some sense of a career path for young people. So the idea is that the summer job would align with what they're learning in the school year. But because we haven't resolved the bigger issues of funding with the Office of Management and Budget, this was a stopgap measure to sort of begin to go beyond a pilot that we did last year and to really look at schools. I think there's like 35 schools that have expressed interest in doing part of this. So those are the things. Go ahead, Nancy.
Bill, and speaking as an old veteran, has the Office of Management and Budget asked city agencies to submit contingency reduction plans in anticipation of the impact of some of the
No.
federal
thankfully,
Not yet?
no. But as somebody who's been there, I'm not looking forward to it.
And I guess another question in terms of city government, does this agency reports into the first deputy mayor, or
Nothing has been resolved. I think Deputy Mayor Bureau's Deputy Mayor Bureau's departure, I think, was more personal. I think he has a son in high school, so college is not that far away. And working in City Hall is a tough job. I've had opportunities in the past and I turned them down. So nothing to report. So as soon as I have something to I know I'll be glad to share it.
so you're on your own?
Anything else?
Thanks, Commissioner Charles. It's not on.
Is that on? Yeah.
You want to use this one?
You want this one?
Hello?
Oh, it's on now.
It likes you.
I'll go with that. So next on the agenda, we had the youth board officer elections. Because we don't quite yet have quorum, I'm gonna take the liberty of moving that later in the meeting, so perhaps we'll have another youth board member so we can take a vote on that, if that's okay with everyone.
The only challenge is, unfortunately, I have to leave early today, so I have to leave at 9:30, just so you know.
Okay, so we will do it before. We'll make sure to do that before we jump into the discussion section. I think that's part of the same time. So thank you. So I guess we will
It's
jump.
not working with
Not working. All right, we're giving up on this. Okay, better. Thank you. So next we're going to move on to the program committee. Over the last a few weeks ago, the program committee was able to gather and to talk more about the Cornerstone Community Center programs that are located in NYCHA that Commissioner Chong had just mentioned. At that meeting, Jess Vides Hernandez is the Senior Director of Cornerstones, gave a presentation, and she was joined by Dr. Luis Osorio, who is the Director of Resident Engagement. I think it was Liz, Jordana, and Ray were at that meeting. I'd love to hear if you have a quick report back from what you all wanted to discuss.
Wait, what? I
Go, you go.
last time
There
I
you
went
go.
here. Yeah, why don't you go, right, because I gave a report last meeting.
Just to say that it was a very active, intelligent meeting, and
As opposed to what most meetings.
yeah, well, like to say that it was beautifully described about how important and how wonderful the Cornerstone effort is, and all of you actually would have been proud to hear about the program, and there were a variety of different questions that were asked. I don't know exactly what to say other than to really all of you to be aware of the Cornerstone program and really how terrific it is. And I, as another veteran of all these services, it was so exciting on a very personal level to hear everything that's going on at DYCD. With great congratulations to the staff here, and also recognizing that has been a moment in time with an influx of money. Which allowed the creativity to be able to happen. But the thought process around Cornerstone was really terrific. And so, Liz, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think that, yeah.
It was terrific.
The only thing I would add is that I think that these small meetings for new board members have been really helpful for me to start to understand the vast array of services that the DYCD offers, and like how we could find ways to connect. And so just from that very, very small meeting, I think there are several ways that, like, personally and through my organization, there are some ways that we can start to connect and build some deeper opportunities and bridges and with already existing services that both of us are doing. So I encourage more of these types of meetings, and also folks to attend more of these meetings, because it was really a great opportunity for me to understand more. So thank you for organizing it.
Yeah, and just to build on what Jordana said, with the program committee, it really is one that you can attend based on your interest, so it's not a big commitment. So I think the team always circulates what the topic is, and if it fits with your schedule, it's a great way to dive a little deeper. So just again, thanks for giving us all the opportunity.
So on that note, the plan is to have one program committee meeting in between each one, and definitely would love to hear your suggestions on different program areas you want to hear more about. I think definitely out of the Cornerstone program committee meeting last month, we do want to think about tours. We recall last year we have some site visits to go see some programs. I definitely think, given the success of that meeting, Cornerstone will be one site visit we'll set up. So that's again another way to get out and see the programs. But look out for a future email on the next program committee meeting. There are certain members who've joined, but we welcome more and all of you. It's like Jordana said, a chance to go deeper, learn more in depth about what we do, so that you all can be the best forward members possible.
Just to add one other thing, I reminded myself, one of the topics that came up, because we were just a small group, they began talking about civic education. And it was interesting. I don't know whether or not it will have an impact in terms of the work we do here at DYCD, but the whole business about civic education and young people. So it seems to me that a program committee meeting is twofold. One is so those of us can learn more about what's going on. The other, and it's three. And the second is the ability to be able to see in a different way how to hook up other kinds of services to young people. And the third is to have a conversation that most of us don't have unless you're you work for an organization and you're dealing with youth. But the whole civic education thing is really quite interesting.
That's great. Thank you so much to the program committee for that. So we are going to move back now to the youth board elections now that we have a quorum. So over the last several weeks as well, the Standards, Rules, and Nominations Committee had put together a slate. As some of you may remember, we need to nominate and elect a vice chair, a secretary, and a recording secretary for the youth board. And so the committee met and put forward a slate. Of that slate, Ms. Liz Cripps accepted the nomination for vice chair. Unfortunately, the nominations that were put forward for recording secretary and secretary were declined. So those two nominations remain open. So I would encourage any of you who are interested, please feel free to self-nominate or reach out to me or Anthony or anyone on the board. I would love to have, the 4 officer positions will, be the executive committee, and I think we have some big plans. Liz has been a great participant here on the board, and so I really encourage you. I look forward to working with you and getting to know you more, so please consider that. If anyone has a nomination for a secretary or corresponding secretary at this time, feel free to jump in if the moment moves you.
Can you describe what the roles are for those 2 positions?
Sure. So the secretary basically takes the minutes of the meeting, and that was a position that was occupied by Erica Larson. And of course, there is a great deal of support by DYCD staff in putting together those meeting minutes for those of you who's had the joy of meeting minutes. But also, it'll be part of the executive committee team and really work to develop the agendas for the next year. And then the corresponding secretary is a position we've talked a lot about. It's essentially holds a role if the youth board would like to do public communications. The corresponding secretary, that would be their primary role, would be to develop any public communication that would come out from the board. So it's a role that we've debated, and certainly I think probably the boards over the years have engaged in that in different ways. That role could be adjusted. I think there's an opportunity as well to look at the bylaws and see, is there a role that makes more sense for our current iteration and kind of where the agency is at the time. So I think we can certainly look at those. Are there any other questions on those 2 positions? So if not, we would love to put forward the nomination for Liz to be the vice chair on the board, and I guess take a vote. Please know that only youth board members can vote on this, so I guess if we could put forward a motion to nominate Liz Cripps for vice chair. Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor of the board? Thank you. Looks pretty unanimous. Thank you all. So we welcome Liz. We're very excited to be working with her. I hope you all consider secretary and corresponding secretary, so I'll reach out to you. I guess next we will move to the Youth Workforce Programs Report. We're going to have Mr. Chris Lewis, Director of the Summer Youth Employment Program, give some highlights from 2017 SYP Annual Summer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm also going to second the commissioner and apologize in advance. I too am under the weather, so if you'll bear with me as I try to get through this. I'm here. If you can all, you'll see in your packets, there are 2 annual summary documents in the left-hand pocket. One for the Summer Youth Employment Program overall, and one a more detailed report on Ladders for Leaders. In the interest of time, I understand I only have 10 minutes to go through this. We're going to focus on the overarching Summer Youth Employment Program, which does go into some of Ladders for Leaders is a part of the Summer Youth Employment Program. So I'll talk kind of overarching about that, and we'll speak somewhat about Ladders for Leaders. For those of you new to the board or unfamiliar with the Summer Youth Employment Program, this program is designed to provide 6 weeks of paid work experience to New York City residents between the ages of 14 and 24. I'm on the second page now, so between the ages of 14 and 24 during the months of July and August. Those young people are paid the New York State minimum wage. This past summer, that minimum wage is $11. And the goals of the programs are, to introduce young people to the world of work, provide them supplemental income, and to help them explore new, possibilities in terms of career interests and, work habits and skills that they may not have, been. It basically introducing them to what it's like to be in a work environment. The next page goes over is a bit of a timeline, kind of from DYCD's administration of SYP. The program itself has actually been in existence since 1963. It's the oldest and largest youth workforce development program in the nation. A couple of highlights I'd like to kind of point to are in 2013 we made the last RFP release that we made a decision to kind of carve out some of the way we were actually delivering services to specify specific target areas, in particular young people ages 14 to 15, young people who are facing extensive barriers to employment, be that being in the foster care system, fully involved, runaway or homeless or receiving ACS preventive services, and then also kind of fleshing out our the Lattice for Leaders professional internship program as well. Moving on, the next page goes into detail about those 4 service options that I just mentioned. For a younger youth option, those young people work 20 hours per week, with 5 hours of per week they report to their CBO, community-based organization, service provider, to receive an additional educational component. This essentially is supplementary information in regards to financial literacy, work readiness habits, time management, how to and exploring opportunities for continuing education. Our older youth portfolio is for young people aged 16 to 24. This is kind of the SYP as everyone knows and understands it. This is 25 hours of work experience placed at external sites. They also receive, both groups receive an orientation. It's just that the younger youth also receive supplemental educational and work readiness training during the course of the summer. And then, as I mentioned, we have our vulnerable youth option, serving young people who are facing those extensive barriers, runaway homeless, formerly justice involved, in or aging out of foster care, receiving ACS preventive services. And then lastly, our Lattice for Leaders service option is for, it's our competitive, high-performing internship program where young people actually have to, as opposed to the lottery system under the general SYP, these young people interview and have to basically competitively interview for these job opportunities and have chances. And I know a few faces around the table actually have posted some Lattice for Leaders interns. This is basically an opportunity for those young people who already have work experience and are high performing in school to get some of the more higher level job opportunities that are available out there. Next page, we go into some quick figures for the program. This past summer, we served nearly 70,000 young people. This is essentially doubling the level of service from the inception of the current administration, which, to those points, that's kind of been the MO in the first term, has been this, massive expansion in services, and we're really proud that we've been able to provide this many opportunities to our young people. The funding for the program is reached nearly $127 million, of which $83 million of that has gone directly into the pockets and the economies of young people in the city. Another fact that we're extremely proud of. We know how important this program is in terms of providing kind of an opportunity for young people to really be able to contribute more in their homes and in their communities in terms of investment in services and businesses in their neighborhoods. Another figure I want to point out, of the nearly 70,000, over 1,800 of those young people were in the Lattice for Leaders program. Each of these numbers, by the way, have been record numbers each year. It's kind of, every time I kind of give these summaries each year, I start to feel like I'm sounding like a broken record when I say most ever. We've continually increased our service levels and stats for all, pretty much every metric we can find in this program. So we're very proud about that. But yes, this is also the largest number of Lives for Leaders participants we serve, and the 3171 youth is again also the largest number of youth we serve in the program. One of the other key priorities as Commissioner's priority has been trying to identify more private sector placement opportunities for young people. SYP, a large subset of SYP has been placing young people in the nonprofit and public sector, especially in the childcare industry. But we've tried to make strides in finding more diversity in our placements for young people, and we found that it's been very helpful. Talked about funding. I'm going to try to move along a little bit quicker. The program, if you're not, if you didn't know, is actually operated. We administer the program, but it's operated on the ground through contracts with 50 nonprofit organizations that are located in communities throughout the 5 boroughs. The list of those providers are here in the program partners slide. We have our chart on the next page of enrollment, and as you can see, the bars have just continued to grow and grow and grow. A breakdown of the young people that are actually participating in the program. 58% of them in 2017 were female. That's a trend that tends to...
Bad news.
Yeah, no, we absolutely want to try to ensure that that men are also being represented in this program as well. But yes, traditionally we've seen young women come out and take part and take advantage of this program more so than men. Breakdown by borough, the most young people reside in Brooklyn, followed them by the Bronx and Queens, Manhattan and Staten Island. Young people are mostly Black or Hispanic. That accounts for about 2/3 of the program's population overall, and the vast majority of the young people are high school aged, nearly 3/4 of the program. Another subset of the program are young people. We have specialized services for young people with disabilities. We served 3,400 of those young people in 2017. The total number of work sites, on the next page I'm going speed round. The number of work sites that we partnered with this year to provide opportunities for young people was over 12,000. As I mentioned at the beginning of the slide, we had 45% of our placements in the private sector, followed closely by nonprofits at 41% and public sector at 14%. Some of the employer highlights, there's a couple pages forward, some of the businesses that we've had participate in the financial services industry, CJ Morgan, Bank of America, Technology, AOL, and AppNexus, retail, Models, Staples, healthcare commodities, Mount Sinai, and Health and Hospitals Corporation. The very last, I'm going to move ahead really quickly because I don't want to take up too much of Dows's time and the rest of your time. I'd like to, Dusty is going to reclaim her time to get is our financial empowerment page. This is a couple pages forward. It's a chart that looks like this. For anyone that can see it, has a like little bank icon on the top left. We've received a multi-year, multi-million-dollar grant from the City Foundation Cities for Financial Empowerment, and they've essentially tasked us with finding ways to bolster our financial empowerment efforts in the city. And one of the ways in which we've been able to do that very successfully has been vastly increasing the number of young people that enroll in direct deposit for their pay. And we're proud to say this summer we had over 24,000 young people enrolled in direct deposit, which accounts for about 35% of all participants in the program. and is a 51% increase year on year.
And that's quadruple where it was before it started.
Right. We're really proud of that. I think that's where I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions for me before I turn it over?
What did you say? Who builds the financial literacy curriculum for the financial model?
The curriculum was developed internally. We've utilized the tools from different financial institutions and organizations, foundations that are experts in that work. We've also, and I kind of glossed over, but I didn't mention it here, we had also partnered with a group called Everify that essentially they specialize in this kind of work, and they've developed tools and app and a web-based portal where they have modules and curriculum on specifically a myriad of topics related to financial empowerment, opening a bank account, payroll taxes, direct deposit, savings, all of those topics, and we actually partnered with them to help directly deliver that platform to our young people.
Letters for Leaders, how much help has been with, and you don't really have to answer that totally, but that I would hope that there would be an aggressive push for big members is one, and then the second is there any push at all to all of the smaller entrepreneurial businesses that have exploded in the city?
On your first question, I think it's going to make sense when Dalcy, she's our Director of Employer Engagement, she'll be able to kind of speak specifically to that. In terms of push, in terms of small businesses.
When I mean small business, I really mean not your local store.
Startups.
If you're startups that may be around for a while, but clearly in terms of tech, with all these areas in the city where all these companies are located.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely ongoing efforts now.
Yeah, I mean, and Dulcie can talk a little bit about that. I mean, the challenge with startups is that they expect a young person to have all the skills.
Yes, I know.
And so it's easier to work with the big corporation.
Sure, they understand.
They have the capacity to mentor a young person and understand where they are in their career path. With startups, and that's the experience I think you might have the steering committee meeting, the steering deployment, is that they're apples and oranges. So the matching for a young person from Letters for Leaders for a tech startup has to be very hands-on.
Right.
And in some respects, the matching with a tech company is less intense because they're more able to provide a support system.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious about the enrollment breakdown. I was a little surprised about the Black and Latino ratio. I know that Latinos are surpassing African Americans in the city, and I'm curious why we're like half of enrollment in terms of the SREP. Is it a question of outreach or what's the nature of that?
I think definitely, I mean, I don't want to say that there aren't extensive efforts made to reach out to young people in the Latino community. I think, one of the key reasons why we've utilized this kind of, not a centrally administered program, but we're administering it and then working with communities with community-based organizations that live where the young people live is to that very exact point, is to make sure that we're doing our best to meet young people where they are and provide those services so that they can actually see that these opportunities are available to them. I do believe that absolutely more can be done to serve more young people in the Latino community, and I think hopefully with the new RFP process, that's something that we can work to try to emphasize and make sure that we have.
Part of the challenges is that the RFP we did in 2013 was designed to serve 34,000 young people. And so the number of groups we have is the same number of groups we had back then. So part of what I wanted to do on my bucket list was to baseline the city funding, which is now 80% of the budget. And because the budget dance every year, the last 16 years is we find out 2 weeks before the start of summer how much money we have to do the summer program. So the good news is the money's baseline. Now we can do an RFP and do two things. One is add more groups, which is something we would ask. Once the RFP is out, we'd ask everyone to help get the word out to make sure that we have good coverage throughout the city. And the second thing is we can come up with 11 models now. If there are 11 models in the concept paper, So greater customization from programs that target young people who are involved in gun violence programs to the 15 high crime public housing developments. So, but we can't do all that until we have certain funding. And without 8%, so we recognize this is an area we want to grow in. In the past we've tried to do a lot of marketing. I know for quite a few years, the front page of El Diario profiled a young person in SYP. In fact, what's that guy? The guy who's probably going to run for when he did the app.
Yeah, so he worked with Gen 10.
Something other. He was on the front page. So, if people have ways to get the word out, we welcome them. But I think the big issue will be expanding capacity because it really is less about press and more on the ground. And the more people on the ground, the more outreach we can do.
So I think, I'm sure there are more questions, and certainly we can continue this conversation with Chris, but we want to reclaim Delsey's time here.
I will not be reclaiming my time. I'll keep this for you.
So Delsey's going to talk about ladders for leaders and ways that will board members can be more involved. We're reclaiming the time for you.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Good morning.
They're coming around. I'm handing out I'm just handing out two documents. The first one is just our Ladders for Leaders employer brochure. And the second is a document, and Chris actually went through a lot of the details for both SYP and Ladders for Leaders. But it gives some more information and distinctions between both programs. But hopefully everyone that's going around. So just to introduce myself, my name is Delsey Andrade, and I'm the Director of Employer Engagement and Partnerships here at TYC for the Youth Workforce Portfolio. And what I'm here to do today is to actually put out a call to action for all of you wonderful new board members to help us increase the number of internships and work opportunities for NYC youth, specifically for the SYP and Ladders for Leaders program. One thing I'm going to point to on the document that actually went around is I think it's the second to last block within the document, just in regards to referrals. So through SYP and Ladders for Leaders, we're able to make candidate referrals to any open positions that you all or anyone in your network has available for young people. So for Ladders for Leaders, it actually starts really early, so we can start making referrals in December. And for SYEP, that process starts in March. So I just want to make sure that everyone understood that time distinction in regards to both programs. I only want to particularly focus on how you all can help us increase the number of job opportunities, and in particular, we always want to focus on increasing the number of private sector job opportunities. And just looking around the table, I know there's some folks already in the room that have participated with our programs. So it'd be great to hear some of your experience as well if you want to provide that to everyone today. So there's three main ways that you guys can help. The first one is pretty straightforward. It's if you are able to host an intern at your organization or at your company. So for a lot of people, it sounds daunting, the idea of hosting an intern, providing a valuable work experience, but DYCD, along with the Center for Youth Employment, is here to provide that support service to you all. Whether it's you're not sure what projects you have available, we can help you craft a job description that would work for a young person. And throughout the process, we're here to support you while that young person is at work. And in addition, for SYP and Ladders for Leaders, the participation process is very streamlined. It's really easy. What we do is just have you fill out one form where you're able to describe your recruitment needs and what skills you're looking for in an intern. And then what we do through our contracted CBOs is actually vet and screen candidates for you that meet your requirements. And on the flip side of that, we always want to make sure that it makes sense for the young person. So we always want to make sure that there's a good matchup between what the employer is seeking and also what a young person is interested in, because our focus is making sure that we're providing exposure to a young person, to an industry that they are interested in. So that's step number one, if you're able to host an intern. Number two, it's actually reaching out to your networks. So sometimes we don't realize all the amazing people that we have in our networks, especially the different employers and corporations that we have in our networks as well. So it's really a call to those folks within your networks, just in case they're interested in hosting an intern. I did pass around an employer brochure, and if anyone needs extra marketing materials, I'm happy to provide that. And in the back of the brochure is my contact information. So if you do know of anyone within your network, you can feel free to provide them with my contact information, and we'll go ahead, and the rest of our team go ahead and reach out to those folks and engage them with the program. And then the last one that I wanted to emphasize, and I think we discussed this last year as well, is in-kind services. So through our programs, we do provide training to young people before they go ahead and interview with a company. For Ladders for Leaders, the training is up to 30 hours, so it's a little bit more robust and extensive. And one important piece of that is mock interviews, because that's the important piece, being able to sell yourself and your skills. So after this meeting, we're actually going to send an email out. So if anyone is interested, anyone on board, or anyone within your organization, if you guys are interested in assisting with the trainings, we'll provide you with more information on when the trainings will be happening. Basically starting in January up until May. We're hosting a lot of different trainings throughout all boroughs. So it's a really great opportunity for you all to come out, meet the young people, and really help them get prepared for their interviews. So those are the 3 main ways that you guys are able to help. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to having more internship opportunities coming through the uniform. And I'll pause here for any questions, and I know I wanted to give you some more information that you had.
Just one thing, if you would be able to send an email to us so we can blast out to our networks with the great brochure and your contact information, kind of what you'd like us to deliver, that would be easier for us to send it out if that's possible.
That sounds great, and I actually have that email ready to go. Yes, so we get that out all the time, and you can attach the brochure. So yeah, I'll definitely make sure to get that out to all of the board members.
That sounds great.
For sure. And then really quickly, just in regards to the question about the workforce development board and their budget though, so Reynolds is here as part of the board as well. And every single year we work together very closely to increase the number of job opportunities for both programs. And I think this year is about 7. Yes. Jobs total. So yes, we do that.
Yeah. They set a goal, and it's really aggressive marketing.
Totally. Twisting arms.
Yeah.
And we're planning at our next,
so for those who didn't hear me the first time, so the board set a goal of about 300 slots this year to support the SYP Ladders for Leaders program, and we ended up securing 647 slots, either through direct hires, financial contributions, or network outreaches. A big portion of that was City Foundation's donation of about $1 million, or a little more than that. And this upcoming summer, we're looking to set an even more aggressive goal to support the program.
Thank you, Delcy. Thanks, everyone. So we are going to do something a little different. Thank you so much, staff. We wanted to take the opportunity to do something a little more celebratory, but also have an opportunity to engage with each other. I think we come into the meetings and there's so much information to share and so much that we want to dive into. We haven't been able to really get to know each other a little better. So we're going to spend kind of the rest of the time doing kind of these small breakout discussions with one another. You know, some of it is definitely to get to know each other and also to maybe develop a little bit more around what we'd like to see and how we'd like to gauge in 2018. I guess what we'd love everyone to do is, I know the room is a little hard to move around, but please identify someone you actually don't know, haven't had an opportunity to connect with. Maybe we can do groups of 3. And we're gonna kind of put forward a couple of questions. We'd love you to each take a minute to, kind of respond to the questions for each person in the group. And then we may or may not have a quick share out to the larger body, depending on kind of how disciplined we are with our time. So perhaps if we can just find each other, and maybe it's your neighbors, in groups of 3, and then when folks are kind of organized, we'll start to put out some of the questions. Oh, the questions are here, miraculously. This is what happens when you have an amazing staff. So I guess the first question is, where did you grow up, and what was your favorite thing about your neighborhood? Then the next question is, what do you enjoy most about the work you do, and what could you absolutely do without? If we can get to something else, we'd love to talk about one thing that you would like to see the youth board and youth committee accomplish in 2018. One thing. And lastly, because we're always ambitious, what youth-related policy or issue would you like to learn more about or explore? So I just want to remind you, when you go into your groups, please introduce yourself, and please note whether you're a youth board member or youth committee member, because we do have 2 bodies here, and I think it's unclear who's sitting on what body, and I think that'd be a great thing to know. So I guess let's jump into our committees and let's have some good exchange. So I'm gonna let you.
Yes, I'm sorry. We can all be
Make it a committee of 4.
Nancy Wexton.
Oh, so we're a group of 5?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Jeanette. All right, I'll start. My name is Nancy Wexton. I am a youth board member. I am currently employed by Fordham University, the graduate school of social science. And this is my sort of downshift job after a long career in the nonprofit sector. I grew up in Fresh Meadows in Queens, and I guess my favorite thing about the neighborhood was that you could go out into the street and play, and there was that's when I started. I'm like 65 years old, so we're talking about a long time ago, so probably that was it. I could just go out and play.
So my name is William West. I'm an NYPD vet.
You want to take this jacket? It's so hot in here.
No, it's alright. I work for NYPD for I was born in Brooklyn. I moved to Staten Island. I actually never had to knew about this thing
Go down the river and go to the Great Lake,
there's pretty cool individuals that take the time to go out I wish I had growing up, but they come here now. And
10,000 people behind my house.
I guess my favorite thing about my neighborhood
Running at farms, chasing cows, or being chased by the bulls.
I always had chasing pheasants. I always saw children end up in bad places.
When I was a little boy, 8, 9, 10 years old,
not paying attention to someone at all.
3, 4, 5
I think that I always had that, and I think
years old now.
something that can be occupied.
Child in your backyard. Parent looks at him every 5 minutes. And at that point, we just walk around. So that's what I love about
small town, and everyone knew each other. You walk down Main Street, people would go to Greenwich when you were in high school.
Exactly.
And I lived here in New York. I was great. Back in that neighborhood. I lived briefly in my house in that neighborhood.
One of the things that I love to do is one of my sons, one of my sisters, bring me
And then
one of the things I would like to see
So I like having,
and then
having access to.
they don't know about it. At this particular point, Richmond. Now they're lobbying, we just
Where'd you grow up?
There's a mayor's office has this thing called, has this thing called the Children's Cabinet, which is supposed to do that. Deputy Mayor Rich Beery just actually just announced that he's had helped convene this thing called the Children's Cabinet, which was representatives from all the city agencies that have anything to do with children's youth. And it was supposed to be kind of like that, but, you know, this is a big city, information trickling down takes time or doesn't happen.
It's also important to put the right people in that agency. First of all, it's a top-down organization. Everyone in the room is going to determine what that's
I love seeing you at our meetings, and I think that you really are you part of the program committee, or is it just the bylaws of our group that you should attend?
We're committee members.
Okay. I think it's such a great
There's like a lot of relevant city agencies are supposed to, or maybe through statute, have a representation, like ACS and HRA and NYPD. I think NYCHA should be here. Yeah, so I think they don't always come, and the Department of Ed, you know, I think you're mandated members, I think, but I don't know, now that you're the manager, you can look at the bylaws.
But I know that's fantastic, is having even you all at the table matters.
I think by 2018 we can get other agencies involved.
Yeah, I mean, they have not been consistent attendees like ACS and HRA. I mean, I think they're on paper as members.
I've seen an NYPD alone as a duplicate. There wasn't any on silos. Ultimately, we can do so much together. Like, I mean, they do. But, you know, no one knows about it. We have Explorer program.
That is something to think about. It would be really good if we had consistent representation.
And I think the shared divide and what we're doing across agencies, because there are dedicated providers, we have relationships with Charlie agencies, Charlie and buses and the two HR and my love and centers. And oftentimes, I'm speaking to the population, and it's duplicated effort. Sometimes, unfortunately, whenever duplicated efforts, I think it's going to be streamlined information and also sharing the best practices and super impact by collectively aligning against the strategy for New York City Youth. But it is also challenging, and that's one of the challenges because everybody has goals, objectives, but I think that there's something to facilitate and achieve all that.
So who are you?
Deb. So, Jeanette Rodriguez, born and raised in Parksville, Brooklyn. Love it so much that I moved back. And I'm actually raising my daughter in my childhood because my parents didn't sell. And I lived in Fort Greene after I graduated from college when the building was practically being given away and I should have invested in it and we were kind of work at Nike, so I was the American Director of Government and Public Affairs. So in that capacity, work with city agencies, elected officials across the state, in terms of policy, around education, around lobbying, around defense, around security. I feel it also demands that government is involved, so I worked across that. My background, but it was like really back that was program department. So I oversaw programs and so I guess the level of
You have a lot of. So we do. So we in New York City is a breakdown of our assets. Our assets and I like Soho, for example. Soho alone has 300 employees at our corporate headquarters. Right now we're in headquarters in Orange. So no, we've always had one. So our global headquarters in Britain, yes, in New York, we always had it in Chelsea. We just actually had closer to Chelsea. We used to be in the former Port Authority building that's not happening. So we actually were
things that are not, we don't think of as necessarily health-related, but very health-related.
But then, like I said, so if you think about employees in New York City,
We doing a lot of scholarships,
combination
all
of
tutoring and
probably has about
mentoring.
1,500, that's our
Big emphasis on
Oh, absolutely. So we have a few of them. My absolute favorite is like the emphasis on
New York City, and we've got children from 5 different
that's not
countries.
transition. The Beacon Girls. So like the Beacon Girls, they got that time.
Is
that through Beacon schools? It was through the, do you guys know what, it was through the Beacon schools?
Sirens.
So what it was when I first came to my role,
Just like your kids, and they went from complex to complex, they've never been in some of these areas. They're very territorial, even though they don't they'll look to beat each other up, or sometimes kill each
some of
other.
it experimental,
None of
they
them.
get letters for
Well,
leaders,
none of them
we have
were
organizations
overall.
that support
And so we had them go through all of the different classes, and after that, we broke it down the barrel. Now you live in Van Dyke, you go to Brown, you live in Brown, you go to Tilton, you live in Tilton, you go to Tilton. And we said, and the bicycle that you rode on, we gave them their bicycle. So it's a reflection on the sort of stuff that we do it. Yeah.
And we were seeing this because we were getting girls that had little or no
So, you know, we try to do things.
but it was also really powerful because we started seeing a shift in
That's
dads now
essentially
different
parents and so this year I'm going
more
through a
coming out to the
program,
practices.
Reading to My Angel in Hanford.
Partnered with Madison Square
It was
Garden,
very
Check
like
held up
education.
and the team that I won was a team from Chinatown that had never left their community. And now they're so it was really inspiring. So when that became Girls, it just really inspired us to create other programs. Since then we've done ski programs, and we did cornerstone programs with the boys, and now with Zoom Link and Gender.
Bring your
We
children
even
in.
put a pilot
I'm going to bring out about 100 volunteers.
With we also did
And
through Ladders for
bring your
Leaders.
children in, we'll take your children, we're gonna get some people from daycare centers.
We were paying college kids to go in and programs and assess
We'll take about 100 people from our
against
and
programs.
we will babysit those kids. The moms will go into a different area, we'll give them massage, we'll give them facials, we'll get them pedicure, manicure, and just be pampered, nice smelling, and nice talking. And we'll take them for about 4 hours, separate them from their children. And we're gonna take the kids and we're gonna give them books. And we're gonna play with books. You know, children read books. And then the yellow set is red, and then the blue set is green. And all we want the children to do is feel comfortable. Feel that this book in their hands.
We've done a ton with NYPD and MIT Explorers. And we created, Corey Grable, he's secretary of NYPD.
But nevertheless, put it in their mind, they should be.
With him, I created
And these kids have these books that are. And so we want children are always coming.
Yeah, definitely.
And when they go on the
Oh, that's awesome.
they're doing something.
One of the other things that,
And we're gonna take the amount of
Yes.
raising
access to all
children
schools,
and the
so that's
importance
always
of
factored
taking your time.
And that's the whole thing, I think that's really good.
And then we'll have a breakfast with mom, then we'll have a lunch, you know, somebody like Susan Taylor or some other well-known person, who come in and talk to them. And it'll be just a good answer to bring those moms back to those talks again. And we'll once again make them sign a pledge. For the next 90 days, they will teach their child. And we're not trying to change action, we're trying to change attitude.
Yeah, it's just so
You know,
hard
if
to
you change
penetrate a
attitude,
huge bureaucracy like the DOE, or like, huge bureaucracy.
I've had my challenges in
I know, everybody has.
And you try to.
It's among the things that we do. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that even though we're a locally profitable
Capital investments and
16 years,
Right.
it's
really difficult to
the last 6 years, we've taken medical patients. We've taken all kinds of
It always has to, you know,
and
have
taken
to
down and we do
Right,
operations.
Mayor, the Chancellor. What about you, Liz?
So I work for a money management firm, it's an asset management firm called New River Gorman, and I run all their community programs, so their foundation, and engaging our employees in the community. So, about over 60% of our employees volunteer globally with our partners, and our focus is of the foundation is youth and education. So that's how we partner with DYCD. Unfortunately, our product isn't as sexy as sneakers, or I know Models is really cool, but we just bring students in. Like yesterday, we had students from Fabric Fellows Academy 2 in West Harlem in for some job shadowing, or by the Rockefeller tree, and they said, we've never seen a tree, we've never been down here, they constantly take the kids to the tree, so, even just getting them comfortable coming into a huge office building.
That is such a good point, and Jeanette, I was gonna say this, when I ran a network of community-based agencies, sometimes we would bring kids into the city, and for some of them, it was the first time they were in a midtown office building. Even if they live in the Bronx or and their housing project, they don't travel to other neighborhoods, and that's one of the key things, I think, about, getting kids more comfortable, and also comfortable in the different kind of workplaces, seeing where they don't leave their neighborhoods. They don't live in neighborhoods. Right, or they just don't feel comfortable. And so that's why it's so good, Liz, to just bring them to like an office environment, to see like,
These are normal people, they live locally, we do panels, and we try to help younger people from just how they got started. A lot of them were native New Yorkers, were marks in different areas in their jobs, their stories, and seeing the looks on the kids' faces that they can relate. So, but we're a small company, so our peers are doing work at Chase's 200,000 employees, we just have 2,000, so what we kind of do what we can.
but Liz, you didn't say where you grew up.
I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so yeah, I'm a Philadelphia girl, but now in New York for 20 years, and raising 2 kids here. Are you in the city? I'm in the city, yeah, Upper West Side, yeah. To every meeting.
I try to make every meeting less than a
And then how do you address you, or do we call you something? Alex, okay.
I'm not like,
Are you a civilian? You an officer?
so I'm a civilian.
Easier to reach for something.
I just have a lot of respect, and
I want to give you all my thoughts.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can all connect.
The only difference
If you have any questions about it.
Thank you. That'll be great.
When do you graduate?
Thank you.
Oh,
that's fantastic.
Too young to be in high school. All right.
How did you find your way to
To be honest, I went to right now. I just seen the program starting off and I started I first worked in the precinct and then I ended up being friends, which was him now. bringing kids to a wider spectrum. We had some interest in like helping children,
And the other.
and he ended up bringing me here.
Liz, have you taken letters for leaders interns?
Have great experiences with them, and then we do take a small group because we're small, and we have a small group of, you know, other referrals, people who apply. With a lot of the leaders, you know, students blended with everyone. I remember asking my head of HR, you know, how did a lot of the leaders kids do? And the head of HR said, I don't know which ones they were.
Could you take a lot of college interns?
Yeah, so they blend right in, and lots of good experiences, like to pitch talks, and there's a lot of things we bring for class together to do a volunteer project. That's my not to but it's a good time. They friends and
Well, you know, a couple of years ago, I've been at Fort Force. And actually on this list, I was thinking they should have all the universities. You know, the university is a big employment in New York City, you know, between Columbia and NYU, Fordham, Pace, you know, they are big employers here, and that's a big omission, I think, in some of the stuff. So I think they took one. Supervisor went on maternity leave, you know, that goes. I'm gonna see if we can. There should be a whole university initiative. I think the biggest employer in New York City is NYU.
You know?
I think so. I think it's true. I mean, when the Cranes comes out with its top employers, I think NYU is there. The hospitals, the universities, the hospitals are so I don't know, we should think about a university outreach.
What is your thought?
Yeah. I mean, these are, you know, these are major, everybody thinks it's like JP Morgan. Right. That entry was, but it's not, it's universities and hospitals.
That's a great point.
Also, just let you know, in the brochure, in the SYP and lots of leaders, there's normally a listing of the employers that we work with in the past. So for 2016, 2017, there'll be employers there as well, so you can look through the list. Maybe if there's some ideas of other companies, you can suggest those as well.
And I will. I guess
We did something.
Yeah. I mean, I'll.
You should let me know.
When we get that email, we're gonna get an email from her. And
That's gonna, yeah, it's gonna come from me or
Yeah.
we are gonna be like the gatekeepers for you guys, so you can reach out to us, we'll let her know the information. So we have some, in case you can't get in contact, then you can reach out to us. My name is Andre, I work with the Youth Board Youth Community as well.
So if you talk.
Alright? You get a lot of emails from me, you should.
I
was like on, what was that?
You go to the
I was on Hanson from that day, and I moved and my mother cried.
So far away.
Well, because I grew up in Minnesota, and Fort Greene at that time was not established, it was not a safe neighborhood. Crime was high, and there were so many abandoned buildings, but I was just fabulous. I was near the trains, and I could get to see, and just a question of
Yeah, my mother. Yeah. I was right about 113 in high school, in that area.
got a lot, like I said, I got a box over my left. I'm the one that got stayed in New York. My sister's my parents that moved out. So 3 years later, we got pushed out. We got story. I'm biased.
I have friends who moved out of Park Slope because they got too strollers.
But for me, like, why kind of thing, and there's always been this support for that. So now I have somebody, my daughter, literally in my pocket, and my neighbors, so they saw me grow up, and now I was like, grandparents,
I think that there's still pockets.
Yeah. It's a huge city. I mean, it's a huge city. It would be a major
So she actually goes to the elementary school. Wow. She has like teachers, her music teacher is the same, which was so surreal to me. Like to stand up and have people on the teachers still the same.
In terms of the employees of the company, is there I've always been interested in this. If they volunteer, or do some sort of community service, do they get time off to do that? Do they get any sort of, is there any incentive to get them to volunteer?
Some jobs have formal policies, 8 hours a year, or for us, it's at manager's discretion, that's what we call it. But a lot of the opportunities are during the day, it's like when you're in student center, you do mock interviews, so.
Hey everyone. Hello. It sounds like we need more time, but unfortunately we don't have more time. So if we could ask at least just one person per group, maybe share a little bit about what you learned, and definitely flag anything you'd like the board to look at in 2018. So perhaps we could start with my wonderful group, Jackie.
So we learned a lot about each other, where we were from. And the discussion we had two discussions. One was we would like to see more parent engagement and ways to involve parent in youth development. And the other is incorporating more civic education within it, more transparency about how decisions are made in government, and specifically how it impacts our communities and our youth.
Do you want to maybe pass it down to the next one?
We had an excellent group also. This was a good idea, Alyssa, to get to know each other a little bit. And all of us are native New Yorkers, except for Liz, who grew up outside Philadelphia, but the rest of us grew up in the 5 boroughs. And it was really interesting. Jeanette works for Nike, Liz works for Berman, for a university, and these two folks work for the police department. Well, one is a cadet. And so we had an interesting mix here. I think we had a little discussion about how businesses can and do support young people. We talked about the redundant, impenetrable bureaucracy of New York City and its agencies, and how sometimes, for them as corporate, as corporations, they don't always know how to get into city agencies and negotiate, including the police department, I think. These are just very big places for agencies to try to, for companies to try to negotiate. What else was a highlight? Yeah, getting agencies to collaborate, city agencies to collaborate so they know what each other is doing, which they don't. Yeah, and maybe so the NYPD regularly sends somebody to these meetings, and we thought it was important for other city agencies like ACS, HRA, DOE, I guess, to represent DOE, to regularly send representatives. And everybody loves their neighborhood, and loves the neighborhood they grew up in. And Jeanette moved back to the neighborhood where she grew up. We have to leave it. So,
we only had one native New Yorker in our group.
Who's that?
So we talked a lot about youth experiences, and particularly what we could do about how we build out what experiences young folks have. Particularly looking at things like our connections to or youth connections to higher education and getting them or providing opportunities and pathways where that's seen as something that is not this amorphous, out of reach, something for somebody else. So here we're looking at lower income youth and minority youth who don't necessarily have that as examples of things that folks in their family have done or places in their family have gone. So seeing what we can do to create opportunities where there's more connections to particularly our local colleges and universities so that youth can see that as a pathway and opportunity for them, something that is potentially an expectation that they have for themselves and a little bit of what they can do what they can choose.
Can I just add to that? Because I brought that up also in terms of recruitment for Learning for Leaders and SYEP placements. The largest, when you look at the Crane's list every year of the largest employers in New York, guess what? It's not Goldman Sachs and it's not JP Morgan, it's NYU and Columbia. And so the universities and the hospitals are, these are the biggest industries in New York, and growing. And I think we need to do a more targeted outreach to get them to participate in hosting interns because they are the biggest employers in New York. So I just throw that out there.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, because I'm just looking at our list, also the philanthropic community, I think needs to step up more. I mean, I was in Atlanta Philanthropy, and that's what I discovered, how few people of color there are in any of the philanthropies. And so I think that's definitely New York philanthropy. They might fund, which is great, but they should really bring young people in to get that work experience, because it's like usually they hire from within, it's their relatives or their friends that they bring in as young people to work there, but
we can do that. I tried that a couple of years ago. I approached Roderick Jenkins and somebody else, Ford, and it was hard because there is this culture of insular culture. It's true of any institution of like you hire your own, the tech sector and everything else. And I even said we're going to pay the wages. We just want young people exposed to a field that they would never have connection to philanthropy.
Yes.
So if you could do that, God bless you.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah. We're gonna.
There's just one other thing, and that is, I'm sorry, they're pretty.
Dulcie.
Right.
Recognizing that dealing with volunteers, as I say Anthony all the time, can be a pain in the neck. That being said, is that some of us would offer, if it would be helpful, to go approach a variety of places so that we come not from our professional point of view, but we come and say, look, speak for myself. I'm a representative from the youth committee, from DYCD. Let me tell you why we should do this. My point is that sometimes it's a pain in the neck to have someone, but if not, I'm offering, and I think that there might be other people who will offer to do that.
Can I just add some tiny things? So one of the suggestions I had was that each meeting that we have a list of the members and their titles in the folder every time, so that we can remind ourselves who's that person next to me, and we know new people that come in. But number two is to say for this next period is like to continue to work on sharing across agencies. I know we've started, DOE's working much more than we did, but as I hear these things, the mayor funded a giant college access for all initiative in our office, which is gigantic, and it's working to do exactly what you said. We have computer science for all. We have CTE expansion. They got large sums of money from City Hall. They're out there in the community trying to do exactly what you're saying. How can we help access our DYCD vendors to be more knowledgeable about this? Even it's like, I remember when I did Learning to Work, we used to come to the runaway and homeless youth and make a presentation once a year and give out our brochures about our program. But maybe there's a way that even if there's informational sessions for the program people between some of these big things, though your people could be sharing some of the message that our people are trying to get out.
So everyone, thank you so very much. We are a couple minutes over, so thank you for your extra time, for your engagement today. We wish you all a happy holiday, and we will see you in 2018. And I will be reaching out, and Liz will be reaching out over the next couple of weeks to have some more conversations. So thank you again, and thank you to commissioners, Anthony, and